So let's go ahead and jump in. So first off, thank you everybody for being here today and for investing your time with us. And we're really excited to share with all of you. So today is all about making a magazine, right? And we have two great people here to share that process with you. And so we have Mary Cheatham King of Mary Cheatham King Real Estate and Meg Gravely, who is her director of marketing. And we have a interesting agenda for this because essentially what we're going to do is talk a little bit about, where the idea for the magazine started and what the timeline or the progression of the magazine has been. And then talk a little bit about, some of the logistics and things like that. And then if you are joining us, ask for questions. And Meg or Lana, I should say, did a really great job at putting together some questions. So we want to answer those specifically. And I think what we'll do here, Meg, is that as we go through this, if people have questions, they can pop that into the chat box, and then the last 10 minutes or so, 5 to 10 minutes for ahas and questions.
That's perfect. And then we'll address everyone's questions within the hour that they've already submitted as well.
Right. Okay, perfect. And so the purpose of today is for you to leave from here with a plan of action, for you to come out of this with you feeling like this was time you invested instead of time that was spent. And so let's just jump right in here. So Mary Cheatham, would you mind kind of walking us through what the origins of the magazine are and, why you decided to do it back in 2016?
Yeah, well, basically, my MAPS coach told me that that we needed to have a magazine. I mean, seriously, Jordan, that was really basically what happened. Was that you said, this is something that I've seen people doing. You guys, we've always really been marketing focused. I love that. So that's something that I've really enjoyed from the beginning, and really we've always kind of focused on that. And so it's been the marketing of our listings, but then it's kind of also gotten into our community, and just it's kind of become this kind of all-encompassing thing. And so Jordan, that was really where it came from, was that you challenged me. We were doing a lot of postcards and a lot of other type of print mail already, if I remember correctly. And then you said, why don't y'all start doing some sort of a magazine? And so it sounded overwhelming, but we started small. And Meg, I don't know if you have that one handy, but I think that's a great visual. And I'm sure that you guys who are joining us today have seen that. But just that it was seriously a giant piece of computer paper.
It really is.
And that was where we started. And and it had some listings in it, and it had, Meg, what else was in that first one?
Testimonials. It had some small business spotlights. And then it has, actually, the headline is, "What do new flood maps mean to you?" Yeah. So a little bit of real estate, a little bit of community stuff, things that we still use in the magazine.
Yeah, you got it. So that was really kind of how it started. And I think at the beginning, I mean, we had kind of a small distribution list, and it was past clients. It was people in our community. It was just kind of some mailing lists that we pulled together. We have a couple of clubs in our area that are, like a country club kind of a thing. We have some beach clubs. So whatever lists we could scrape together where we could get that information, we did that. And then as we've grown, of course, we've continued to any list that we can get our hands on, we do. But we have done farming. So we have somebody in the background who's helped us to grow the list. Her name is Pauline, and she's great. And she is just data lady. And we'll say, hey, Pauline, for this next newsletter or this month or whatever, we'd like to add X or Y neighborhood. And she'll go through and pull the people and their home addresses. We're a second home community. So she's got to make sure that she's pulling their home address, not their local address, so that we're making sure that it's reaching them, of course, during the off season in particular.
Yeah, and there's one thing too that I want to add to that, Mary Cheatham, that there was a question that we actually started with this, and it was, how do we produce something, right, that so good that people in the community would be willing to pay us $5 for it? And not would, right? The intention is never to sell the magazine. And yet we wanted to create something that had content in it that was useful enough And remember, one of the biggest things that you were already doing at the time was the map of the fireworks. So you
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. And y'all, that's exactly right, Jordan. So Pauline uses the tax maps, that's our local GIS tax maps to pull that map. And Jordan, you're exactly right. That was exactly what you said, was how do we make sure that it's bringing value to them? And so it was something as simple. We were at the beach, and so we have a fireworks schedule. You can figure out where the places that you can go to watch the live fireworks, where do the different towns that are nearby have them and at what time. And I would say to you guys watching, do you have local, will they be having Christmas parades in your area or other Christmas events, open houses? I'm sure a lot of things are going to be outside, but that'd be a great place to start for this one, right? Would be, or, I've seen where people have done, God, we live in an area where people are really into basketball. So I've seen people where they've sent out the schedule for different basketball teams, or there are different things that you can do where you're just providing them with information that they'd want to hold on to.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And so Mary Cheatham, I imagine that a lot of the people that are on this call, that their intention is to start their own magazine or their own version of a magazine. So with those people, where would you recommend that they start?
God, Meg, I'd love for you to weigh in here. I think the biggest thing, establishing our buckets was a really big one for us. I think first of all, I would get real clarity around what's the purpose of your magazine. And I don't know, I think that they're probably all the same, which is to get listings, right? Why do we really do any marketing? And I think it's to get listings. And so I think that kind of gives you an idea of what your calls to action need to be. But I think it also needs to be engaging, just like any content you create. What if somebody's not going to sell right now? Why do they want to pick it up? What's interesting about it? And I think that it really gives you a chance to shine a spotlight on people in the community. And I think that you create kind of a symbiotic relationship when you do that just really continues to serve us. Don't you think so, Meg? I think as we become more well-known in the community, and as people see the good that we're trying to do, I think that it just continues to kind of spiral, and it has some momentum that requires less of our pushing to keep it going.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I want to go back to, you mentioned the buckets, and I want to kind of explain what that means, because that's something that we adopted a couple of years ago, and it's helped with content creation across all platforms, but especially for the magazine. So our buckets, or categories that we pull content from, we customized it based on our team in our area and what we want to be seen as. So we would encourage you guys, if you want to create buckets, ours are listing bucket. So we make sure every single piece of marketing that goes out includes something about listings. It includes something with a market update or something real estate related. It includes something about our community, whether it's giving back to our community, whether it's a community spotlight, and then it includes something about our team. We're a team of 18 women. So we always, Lord knows, we always have something that we want to share or something exciting to tell. So we're sure to include those 4 buckets in everything we do. So when we get started with the magazine, we look at those buckets and we kind of literally make a menu almost of relevant topics, be it seasonal or things that are happening in the world. And then we go from there. So we start with the buckets first, we make content, and then we go from there.
And one thing, Meg, that I wanted to add to that is, and you and I had a conversation really early on when you started out. And one of the things that I encouraged Meg to create was what's called a swipe file. Do you remember that?
Yep.
The question that I asked was, who are the brands that are currently putting out content that we would want to emulate, or if we're really talking, in real estate terms, like rip off and duplicate, right?
Yeah.
And brands, I don't remember specifically who you went out and but what I encouraged Meg to do was go out and register your email to some of their newsletters and publications. Pottery Barn was one that I think came to mind. But I think that when it comes to the content, you guys have done a great job at creating the buckets and then running that play. And just another idea for those of you that are looking to create something like this is, go out and subscribe to the mailing list of several of the companies that have brands that are you know, comparable to yours, and just see what they're doing and see if you can take those same ideas and reinvent them into your business.
100%.
Yeah.
And even going further off of that, something that I personally do, if someone watching is design focused, or someone who actually wants to learn a little bit more about print, I just subscribe to actual print magazines, and I pull a lot of design inspiration from, I don't know, Magnolia magazine, or even just magazines that you find at the airport. I'll take a picture, I'll put it in my swipe file for the next magazine, and odds are it ends up being the next color scheme or the next theme or anything like that. So look around you and pull from ideas that are already there, because you can make them even better, or you can just use them in your own way.
That
Yeah.
must be what my wife is up to. She's got all those catalogs coming to our house because she's
That
doing
must be it.
that's
That
what it-
must be it. That totally must be it. Yeah.
White file. Yeah.
I
Okay.
think one of the things that that I also want to point out to everybody is when you're talking about including listings in the magazine. Okay, let's just go back to that, right? Because that's something that you're going to want to include. The purpose of the magazine is to get other listings. So you got to be really strategic depending on how much inventory you guys typically carry and depending on what your turnaround time is. Because remember, you send the magazine to print and then it doesn't reach mailboxes for, gosh, I would say 2 or 3 weeks anyway. Would you say that's accurate, Meg?
Yeah.
So what you want to do is you don't necessarily want to use this as your way to get people to come and look at a house that you just listed, because it might be gone by then. So I think you've got to remember, what is the point, right? The point is really not to advertise those listings, although that's great. The point is to get other people to want to list with you.
Yeah.
And so what you want to do is you want to have these beautiful glossy spreads that showcase your photography skills. You want to have, we have an in-house, a design and staging consultant who works with us. It's a great little business model because we pay her per property. And so she goes out and works with them and meets with them about staging. And I don't mean bringing furniture in. We don't live in a big enough area. We don't have warehouses of furniture around here, but she talks to them about, clean your stuff up, right? Take these things off the countertops and that kind of thing. So we did a spread recently that was the before and after of kind of what the photos look like before we had our specialist come in, which is included in our listing. And then it goes from there, and to hear our stats about how much more quickly our homes sell than other people's homes. So I think I just want to make sure I'm pointing that out, that by listings, we don't mean listings to sell. We mean showing how we treat our clients and how we provide a luxury presentation for every property. So we'll include some super high-end oceanfront, amazing homes, and some adorable little cottages that are landlocked, just to show that we treat everybody the same way. So you're telling a story with the images that you choose and with the way you choose to present them. And I just think that's really important, that the point is not to sell the homes you have listed. The point is to get new listings.
Great point.
And not only that, I mean, I've gone out to Moorhead, right? I've been there before, where you all are, Moorhead City, North Carolina. And I think the thing that also the magazine does from that perspective, Mary Cheatham, is that it tells a great story about the community. Like when you get the magazine and you flip through it, you honestly, at least I do, maybe it's because I live in Kansas and I'm as far away from both oceans as you can get. But you kind of look at that and go, wow, like I want to live in this, I want to live there. Right. And so I think that's one way that you really know that you're nailing it with your magazine, is when people read it, are they going, wow, like, look at this community, look at this neighborhood, look at this house, right? Like is it telling a story about your area that would make people want to live there?
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great point. I think that's a great point. And I think one of the ways that we do that is because we weave a story into everyone that's really not a story. It's the narrative of how people around us give back and how people around us relate to other people. And I think that that's one of the things that draws people into, is that I think that, we're constantly shining a spotlight on other people, and then truly in turn, it just comes back around. And it also gives you a chance to make sure that your content is shared. People who are included in the magazine are so happy and so thrilled to give out copies of it to people who come into their shops or their restaurants. It really increases kind of the buy-in to what you're doing, not to mention that it gives you this opportunity to help defray the cost of putting it together. But I guess, before we get into that, I just was trying to think, is there anything else about these buckets? The market update. I mean, that's a huge, every time that we send a magazine out, we do it 4 times a year. We were doing it 6, but now we do it 4. And so, for example, the magazine that we have that's getting ready to come out, we're really strategic about when it goes in mailboxes. So this one is going to be in mailboxes the week before Thanksgiving. Because the concept is, if folks are traveling for Thanksgiving, they'll throw it in their pocketbook, they'll throw it in their bag, they'll take it with them. If they're hosting or having their family into their home, which I know is going to be different this year, it'll be sitting out on their coffee table. People will pick it up and flip through it.
Yep.
So we get a lot of people who say, oh my gosh, I saw your magazine at so-and-so's house, or so-and-so had a copy of it, or, all of those things. But we made sure that that came out in plenty of time for it to be, kind of involved in people's Thanksgiving celebrations. So I think that that's a really important thing. And from the market update standpoint, we're not talking about our current market, right? We're talking about, hey, the first quarter market is going to be X or Y. These are our predictions for what you can see. Here's why you should start acting now. And you should have your house on the market by the very beginning of the first quarter. There's not as much competition. Buyers will be out, kind of all these, it gives us a chance to spin that narrative while they still have time to act. So you really want to think about the market update standpoint. Again, you're talking about the future, giving them time to engage now.
Yeah. MC, why did we reduce from 6 years, from 6 a year to 4 a year? I don't remember.
I think we just were kind of overwhelmed.
That's
And I
probably
think, I love you, like, that sounds familiar.
Huh.
And I think also that, we kind of figured out, we do some postcards and some other things that go out to the same list in between the magazine, when the magazines go out. So the same database of people, they hear from us with other messaging. As a matter of fact, they're getting a card this week that we decided that we knew we were staggering it close to the magazine, but we thought that might be a good idea, especially right now, to hit them, kind of a 1-2 punch. But we do the one that comes out right before Thanksgiving, which includes our holiday gift guide. So fun, so fun. And again, that's another, I think we'll get to this, but another thing about all of this is reusing the content. That's content that we use. Oh my gosh, we do it in our weekly emails. We do it on Facebook. We do it on our blog. We put this holiday gift guide everywhere, and we chunk it down and use little pieces of it. But so that's what we're doing in this one. We do one that comes out in January, our New Year's magazine, which is so fun. It's kind of, you get to do the year in review, and you get to talk about a fresh start. And we did a spread in one where our team had gotten together to do yoga and set our intentions for the year. And we had walked people through how to set their intentions. And I don't know, it just was really a neat one. And then Meg, we do the summertime one comes out when?
The end of April, beginning of May. And then we feature summer events, things like that, fun summer recipes, decorations for your home during the summer, things like that. And then the next one after that is our fall edition, which comes out in the middle of September. So we've got end of January, end of April, middle of September, right before Thanksgiving. So we've got 4 of those throughout the year. And Mary Cheatham, I do want to kind of but encompass everything you just said and kind of talk about a couple of tangible steps that we take that encompasses the buckets and encompasses the reuse of content. This is something that I think people can literally write down as we're talking about it. It's actually 6 steps that we take to kind of prep for the magazine. And again, it encompasses what you just said, but before the partners and everything like that, of course, step number 1 that we always do, we create a theme. And then we fill our buckets around that theme. Again, a bucket is just a category of content. So you create your buckets, and those are your buckets forever. I mean, you can change them, but they usually stay the same. You fill them with relevant content. After that, step 2.
No, wait, Meg, let's talk about what are the themes? Like, what do you mean by that? Let's tell them, like, what are some examples of some themes that we've done in the past?
Sure. So this one that we're about to launch, that's hitting mailboxes before Thanksgiving, it's the giving issue. The one before that was the light issue. We talked about shining a light on people in our community, stuff like that. What were some other ones?
And the shining a light, what I love too, that Meg's so great. For example, this was one of our listing spreads and the light issue. So it was Let There Be Light. And it was this beautiful kind of sunrise photo shoot at one of our listings. And then we have the details about this listing and the sellers, and great place to put a testimonial. But the messaging here that you receive by looking at this visually is, man, they really go all out for their listings. I'd like to list with them too, which is
Sure.
really what we're looking for, not let's sell this house to somebody.
That's a great point. Great point. I mean, our 2020, oh, I wish it was a transformation, but it was the transformation edition. So just coming up with a theme and weaving everything in your buckets into that theme.
Okay, great.
Great question. Thank you.
Two things real quick on that.
Of course.
So one thing though on the gift guide and some of the other articles and things that they put together is that they are not just ripping off gift guides from other people or publications and rerunning them. It's the gift guides are super personalized in a few ways. Like they typically come from local community businesses and they feature their team members through that as well. And another one that I really love is the recipes that, you will put in recipes of, this is Laura's favorite, whatever. And then it'll have, Laura's recipe. So you feel like you're getting to know the individuals of the team as well. It's not Mary Cheatham, Mary Cheatham, Mary Cheatham. And it's also not just the rip off of other. I see that a lot with people when they create newsletters or magazines, or they're attempting to do something like this. They're just ripping off articles from other places and resharing them. This is all original content that is created. And another thing, the second point I want to make on that is, I think a huge advantage that this organization has is that Meg, who is obviously talent and amazing. I mean, Meg takes things like Mary Cheatham and I come up with an idea and then it's real within a couple of days. Like she is amazing.
True.
The thing is that Meg is local. She understands the community. And one of the big mistakes I see people make is they want to outsource this to somebody who doesn't live there, who's never lived there, who isn't involved in the community. And I think that's another big leg up, that having a marketing or a director of marketing, a person who is in the community, who experiences it and lives it, is a real key to this. So sorry, Meg, keep going with those steps.
I think that's true. And I think from the original content standpoint too, one thing you could do, I mean, Landy on our team writes a lot of the articles. She's a beautiful writer. If you don't have somebody on your team who is a beautiful writer, I mean, it's not really that much copy. It doesn't have to be that much copy. It can be a lot of images and that sort of thing. And I really believe that if you were to say to 4 or 5 members of your team, hey, you're in charge of an article about X or Y, you're in charge of collecting 4 Christmas cookie recipes from 4 other members of the team and a picture of them when they were little. Yeah. I mean, to include, I mean, if you divide it up that way, and then you have to plan ahead, it's due on this date. This is the day that we lay it out. This is the day that we take these different steps. I think you could break it down so that it's not so overwhelming. And we're going to get through the damn buckets. I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm so tickled. Well, that leads right into step 2 is the planning. You draw it out. I physically take computer paper. It's hysterical, but I take computer paper and a pencil and I write, this is the cover. This is what's going to be on the cover. Flip it over. This is what's here. All 20 to 24 pages, however we do it. So I physically draw it out so I can see it. And then I sit down with our planning team, which is Landy, Andy, Landy is a great content writer. Andy works with us in the marketing department. And we do a big brainstorm session before we present it to Mary Cheatham. So we get everything in place so we can almost do a presentation to Mary Cheatham where she can say, yes, I like that. Let's work on that. I don't like that type of thing. So we do that as step 2. So we draw it out. We have a big brainstorm session. And then step 3 is to present it to your rainmaker, to whomever's making that big decision. So I think that is a humongous part that I didn't do at the beginning, was we would hit the ground running and then we'd ask after we did the hard work if Mary Cheatham liked it. So we do it all up front now. And so I think that's been really, really helpful. So that's step 3.
I do. And that's when you can also solidify the theme. It's a great,
Yes.
great way. A lot of times it'll start with, hey, we have these really cool photos. We should use these somewhere, or
Yeah.
time of year or whatever. And then of course I know step 3, I know that one of the steps is to reach out to your partners, people in the community who might want to help you defray the cost. And so that can also help you decide what your theme should be.
Absolutely. And I have that as step 4, but I honestly think that reaching out to your partners can happen at the same time as when you're solidifying things. So I know Mary Cheatham touched on it before, but one thing that we've started implementing over the past year or so is asking local businesses to partner with us to help offset the cost of the magazine. So we'll get into pricing in a little bit, but it's expensive to print. And we're mailing these to about 6,500 people, printing about 7,000 copies. And it gets expensive, but we believe that it's 100% worth the cost because of how many people we're reaching and the goodwill we're doing, or the goodwill we're promoting for the community and stuff like that. So that's reaching out to those partners to help sponsor the magazine. We do that. I want to find a spread. We do that through articles. So it doesn't look like an ad in the magazine. It's a very win-win situation where we get the financial help with the magazine and then they get the exposure from the magazine. So it's a really easy ask. I mean, Mary Cheatham she got some scripts together and helped us with how to present it. But here are two of them.
Yeah.
We do sponsored ads. I mean, they look just like magazine articles.
Yep. So I think one of the things that's really important, we really struggle with that. We really struggled with, how do we not sell out? I mean, how do we not make it look like, like a bunch of tacky ads in there? And it really, I think, turned out great. I mean, no one really knows that we have sponsors. We don't thank our sponsors. It's just that those are the people that we write articles about. And we choose them based on, people that we really genuinely think people want to learn about, or people who really are doing great things in our community and that sort of thing. And I will say, I do think that the scripting on it is huge, because what we don't say is, hey, if you want to be in our magazine, if you'll just pay us, we'll put you in there. That is not at all what this is. It is, hey there, you may or may not have seen our magazine. We'd love to drop some copies off for you. And we've seen what you guys are doing in the community, and it's incredible. And what we're doing is we're constantly trying to make sure that our magazine reaches the widest possible audience and ends up in as many hands as it can, because we include great businesses and community initiatives like yours. And so what we're doing is trying to find folks who will be willing to help contribute to actually write a check directly to the print house. So the money doesn't even run through us, which is awesome. But all we're looking to do is just to defray the cost of these, because it's really expensive to get them out. But we'd love to feature you guys. And what we can tell you is that you'll be, in the hands of 6,000 local people. And we actually farm neighborhoods that are, if it comes down to brass tacks, we do farm kind of the most affluent neighborhoods in our area. And these are people who would be supporting your business, have the capability to do that, and people who kind of are your target audience. So we have that sort of a conversation with them.
That was pretty good. I wish I recorded that.
I don't know if you said this, but I want to make the point. They cut the check directly to the print house.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't come to you. And then what I want to just add in one thing that Meg said on step 2 about drawing it out. There's a very specific formula, and I don't even know if you two remember this. So this is what we started with, was 10-80-10 leadership. Do you guys remember this? That what we would do is the first 10% was the vision. What's the vision for the magazine for this one article or whatever? And then 80% is what Meg was talking about. She and Landy and other members of the team, they go put it together. And then the last 10% is it coming back to Mary Cheatham for her to review and revise it. So that 10-80-10 leadership, I don't know if you all remember that, or even.
I do, of course. And of course there's some sort of like an acronym or like numbers. I mean, yeah, yes, I do remember that. And you're right. And we did, Meg, we had some painful ones. We made some mistakes where it got way far down the line. And then we realized maybe that it wasn't cohesive, or that there was a better article or a better way we could have done it, but we'd already put the work in, and you just hate to scrap it. So I love that. I love the brainstorming sessions. And I think working backwards from your due date. Ooh. Yeah. I mean, it's a game changer. I mean, duh, right? It's like planning a big event. You have to start at your due date and work backwards. We now have it down so that I have a whole week for edits.
Yes.
Because
I review it.
My dad, who is the grammar Nazi, he reviews it. My husband reviews it, and they go through and they find every missing apostrophe
Yep.
and bring it right back on home. So, I mean, that makes a huge difference just to have time to sit with it a little bit.
It really does. So that's actually the step before the next step. So we're on step five, which is put it all together. So as the designer or whoever is compiling your magazine, again, the working backwards from your deadline is a great point. We actually put them in our calendar, put the deadlines in our calendar. So we'll put the brainstorm session in the calendar. We'll put articles due to Meg by this date. We'll put edit week. It's like a big deal. We make sure that we block time of that week to make sure that Mary Cheatham and Landy and I have plenty of time to go through the magazine and edit it. So, wait, let me start at the beginning. Okay, step 1, create a theme, fill in your content buckets. Thanks, Sarah, sorry. Step 2, draw it out, make a physical magazine with computer paper. Step 3 is to reach out and solidify your partners to help offset the cost. Step 4, you're right, Sarah, put it all together. Create content and design, chip away at it every single day. And one thing that I want to kind of also understand and make clear is that, like, obviously this isn't the only part of everyone's job. Everyone's doing a lot of other things on top of the magazine. So something that I've learned painfully is that you have to chip away at it a little bit every day on top of what you already do. So you can't just wait. You can't assume you'll have a whole month to work all day, every day to put the magazine together. You have to we give ourselves 2 months to get things ready. So me and Landy and Mary Cheatham and everyone can chip away a little bit every day at it in order to get it ready for edit week, which is step 5. What Mary Cheatham was talking about, we take an entire week where we submit the magazine to Mary Cheatham for review. We submit it to Landy, who is an excellent copywriter. She's actually our client care coordinator and doubles as our content writer. We submit it to Mary Cheatham's dad, who is just a fabulous 4th pair of eyes, because he's not completely in the behind the scenes part of the magazine, but is a really good 3rd person perspective.
And he's our target audience, y'all. I mean, let's not overlook that, right? So it's not only that we look at it inside, but figure out who are your touchstone people. I mean, my dad is that generation of folks who are, spending money on beach homes. He is somebody who knows a lot about the area. He's super detail oriented. So he's going to catch it if there's a mistake, but it's also from a content standpoint. He'll say, this doesn't make sense to me, or I think you should switch these pages, or, those types of things. So I think that's a big thing too, to have your touchstone people who can read through it to make sure that you're nailing it.
I think that's a great point. And on top of that, it's a edit week. It's a back and forth. I mean, the tiniest things like apostrophes, like you said, but that's what it's meant for. So asking people to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, because as a designer and someone who's been staring at it for 2 months, I miss a lot of things. So It's so important to get everyone's feedback and 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th pair of eyes on it.
And sometimes that's the best. I mean, the back cover this time we reworked that back cover. Ooh. It turned out, I mean, it's 50 times better than it started out, because we had time to get it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So then the final step 6 is, I have written down on my sheet, to market the mess out of it. So when you send it to print, when you submit it to the print house, they'll tell you the format and everything that they need it in. But there's a waiting period in between, and it's different for every printer. We had one printer that it was a week at one point, but our printer now, it's a little bit longer. So we mail our magazines in a pretty blue envelope. It looks just like this. So people know that when this blue envelope comes into their mailbox, that it's from Mary Cheatham King Real Estate. So we would suggest to mail them in an envelope if you are going to, because it protects the covers from getting scratched up through the mail. It just comes presented in a nicer way. And then we have the printing company stuff those envelopes with the magazine, put a label on them, a return address, and mail them off. So that takes a little bit of time. And again, it depends on the printer, but while they're getting printed and while they're in production and you're just kind of anxious waiting, like I am currently, put a plan together on what you're gonna do with the extra copies, which businesses you're gonna drop them off at. We drop little stacks off at almost every single small business here that they can keep on their counters that people can take. Make a plan for how you're going to reuse your content. Mary Cheatham, I'd love for you to kind of talk about recycling content, because that's something that you've been pushing us on big time over the past couple of years, and for good reason. pays off 100%.
Yeah, I think reusing content, and this is true for the magazine or for whatever it is that you're doing. I just think that it's, when you come up with any sort of original content, gosh, you got to think about how you can reuse that. So, we have our magazines. As I said, we do postcards, which is really less content driven because there's not very much space to put anything great on there. But we do, of course, Instagram and Facebook, and then we have a weekly email that goes out to our database. And we use our buckets in our weekly email that goes out. And so we start, sometimes we hold on to some things until the magazine comes out. But for example, we've already launched starting to do our gift guide. And so we'll do our gift guide. We'll do print of our different gift picks from the different stores. We'll do a video about them. We'll talk about them. We incorporate them in our stories on Instagram. So, I think it's really just a matter of once you've got that content, just making sure that you use it as many ways as you possibly can. One of the things we talked about this morning is making sure that we then, I think this is going to be a big opportunity for us. What we do for these small businesses where we've chosen gifts from them is that then we supply back to them either a little clip of a video or a visual or something that then they can share from their social media account. Not necessarily a repost, but an original. In other words, for example, if we have chosen a great pair of boots from EJW, which is a local hunting store, then we might have the boots from EJW, and it would say a little flat laid, a little image that would say something about Mary Cheatham King Real Estate Gift Guide 2020, and then they can share it, and they can say, "We're so thrilled that Mary Cheatham King Real Estate chose this awesome pair of boots for their 2020 gift guide." So in other words, that you're providing other people with the ability, now you're not just tagging them, but you're also then providing them with the opportunity to share it themselves.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Jordan, you're making a weird face. Am I not making sense?
Since I was just thinking, I was looking for, do you guys mind if I just share with them? I think it would be cool to kind of see an example of the email.
Of course.
Yeah. Awesome.
So,
I think
Meg,
you can share your screen.
if you have one that you could show, I think it would be helpful, because I think that the email and the magazine very much, mirror each other. It's all one message, or, it's communicating the brand through multiple medias.
Yeah.
It is. And I think, Meg, while you're looking for that, I guess I could mention, and if anybody wants more information on either one of these things, I'd be happy to talk to them about it. The other two things that we do that I think go along with this brand awareness are, we're doing something called Coffee with MC, which is every Friday morning. Meg and I are on Facebook at 9:30 in the morning, and we have a different guest from the community, or we will talk about, we've had Jordan come on to talk about goal setting, or right now we're doing a lot of things that are focused on the gift guide. But we have a little, 20-minute conversation. Lots of times, again, we're joined by a third person. And that's on Friday mornings at 9:30. It's called Coffee with MC. We've discovered that the best thing to do is to pre-record those, and then to you do them as a premiere video at 9:30 on Fridays instead of doing them live. We kept having technical difficulties. But that's one of the things that's always included in our weekly email, which Meg will pull up and show you guys, is kind of a link to last week's Coffee with MC and a teaser for the next day, because the emails go out on Thursday and Coffee with MC is Friday. And then the other thing that I think is really important is that we are also doing we have MCKRE Gives. And so I guess, Meg, why don't you talk us through this video, through this email, and then I can talk about MCKRE Gives if we think that's relevant.
Sure, we can. And I want to make sure we touch on the questions as well that folks asked at the end. And I think we have plenty of time. So yes, so this is an example of an email, which is a mini magazine that we send out every Thursday at 4:00. That seems to be the optimal time to send it out. And again, you'll see our buckets kind of encompassed in here. And a lot of these are recycled from this magazine coming up. So we have Bring Fall Outdoors. We touch on some local businesses. This would fit into our community bucket. And then right here is our market update bucket. So this is what we kind of feature about our local real estate market. We make sure folks know what's going on in the county, but also how we compare to the county. But we also try and make sure our language is not us, but more about a potential buyer or seller being interested in it. And then we have our listings bucket here, which is where we like to show off some of our wonderful listings. And then we would consider this our team bucket. So any testimonial talking about a team member, anything like that, this would also fit into the team. So yeah, this is a small, oh, here's Coffee with MC. This is a small example of a mini version of a magazine, and something that you can really do a great job reusing content with from your magazine, which is great.
Great.
Mama, there's a special bird.
Okay, darling. I'll be up. I'm
Hey, Walter.
I'll be up in a few minutes.
Oh my
Say
gosh.
hi.
So Mary Cheatham, do you want to go into the questions, or do you want to talk about Insecure Gives really quick?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'll just, in 30 seconds, we've started an initiative called MCKRE Gives, where we take $100 from each closing. So for each family that chooses us to buy or sell their property, we have started.
Oh my gosh, I'm laughing so hard.
you. Thank you.
Oh,
very
this is
much.
so cute.
27 years ago today, Chip asked me on our first date.
Chip, you guys.
I'm sorry, y'all. He didn't know that. Nobody knew that we were filming that.
Oh my gosh, that was very
I'm
sweet.
sweating, babe. That was very sweet. Thank you, Walter.
Wow, that is cute.
Sweating. I'm sweating. Okay. So anyway, we started this MCKRE Gives initiative, where for every closing that we have, we put $100 away, and then the next month we give the total of that money away to a local charity. And so that's just been a great kind of focal point for us, and a way that we've also been able to highlight local nonprofits and what they do and encourage it. We've had some matches, we just had some awesome experiences with that, and it's really turning out to be an incredible thing. And Jordan, a perfect example of where we kind of came up with an idea, and then the next day Meg had designed the logo, and we actually had MCKRE Gives. So anyway, that's just something else to think about. But yes, questions.
Yes, but MCKRE Gives, it flows right into going back to the questions for the magazine. That actually fueled our theme for this upcoming magazine, which is the giving issue. So yeah, that's exciting. All things that stemmed from creating content for the magazine, and things that I'm really excited that we get to do together. But Jordan, I know that we have some pre-submitted questions from folks that I want to make sure we answer. Yeah.
So the first one is about pricing. And so how much does it cost to print these magazines, and obviously mailing and envelopes, all that?
Yep.
And how many do you print? I think we've already talked about, we're at 6,500 now, which continues to go up, right? It goes up, it seems like every quarter.
Yep.
So talk about the cost of the price or the printing and all of that.
Sure. So some logistics. Again, we mail 6,500 to our database, and we print 7,000. At least that's what we did this past time. So we always print extras. We have the extras delivered to our office, where we can then go distribute them by hand as we want. The cost, hold on, I wrote it out so I didn't get it wrong. So the cost for printing a magazine alone is 43 cents per magazine. That's how our split is. In general, for a 24-page magazine like we just did, a rough example, it's about $3,000 to just print alone. But again, as we said before, we have the folks stuff them in these blue envelopes and label them, deliver them first class, just making sure they get to the place where they need to go. And in all, it comes to about $1.03 per magazine mailed. So for example, this past one, this is without any of the partners or sponsored help, but our envelopes were about $1,500 to order. We order those from envelopes.com. And in total, it was about $6,500 to do everything. So it was about along the same lines as how many copies that we printed. And again, costs are different based on your printer, but we're really happy with the service that we get from these printers, and how they handle our magazine with care. So
Yeah, and have them send you a proof before you send it out. Remember, at one time we were orange.
y'all,
So definitely.
please, yes.
Yeah, and
But actually,
I'm sorry.
they overnight, I think that's a great point that I forgot to make. They overnight us a proof, and it's printed on their whatever paper. And I always go through and check for color and anything like that. So definitely have them send you a proof or go look at it if it's a local printing shop. Great point, Mary Gina.
Yeah, and I think I know one of the questions folks are going to have is how much do we ask our sponsors to pay? And Meg, in general, what is like $500?
So we have tiers actually. So it's $750, $500, or $350, and we just base it off of how, if it's a half page ad, which is an article, a full page if they want a little bit more marketing help digitally and stuff like that. So yeah, so we have different tiers, but we started at about 500 per
And
sponsor.
we have we have a lender who's a good friend of ours.
Oh, yeah.
Always has this page. It's the inside cover. We always have a little letter from me, like a magazine, and then this is about the new puppy that we got during COVID. I mean, something cute and whatever. Table of contents, and then he always has this page.
Yeah,
and that's a great one because we can count on him every time he does it. And what is he?
$500. Although it could be yeah.
So I mean, so if we had this to do over again, we would say, if you want, this is a prime spot, and it might be more than that, and it might be, but if you're willing to commit to it for a certain amount of time, it would be less. I mean, all that can be a negotiation.
Right.
But that's something to think about too. That's the only thing that is the same in every one, is that he gives us information on update on interest rates and that sort of thing, which we feel like still doesn't look like an ad because people want to know that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And a couple of people asked, is your print vendor and your mail vendor the same company or different? It's the same. It's Martin Printing Company out of Easley, South Carolina. They're wonderful. I think they print across the country, so hit them up if you need anything. How much do your sponsors normally contribute? Great question. And then, can you order the envelopes with your mailing address on it already? Yes, you absolutely can. Envelopes.com rocks, by the way. Great customer service as well.
And we really struggle with that, Meg. I think, remember, because there was a while that they were being mailed out, and I hate getting mail that looks like bulk mail and it's cheesy. Like, I have the weirdest hang up about that, where it's like, or current resident. No, this isn't to me. I'm not going to open it. So yeah. I think that's Meg, how do we
do little white labels. Yeah. So we have them print, the print house does it, and they print white labels with the address and everything on it. So it's not printed on the envelope itself. Our return address is, but the little white labels make the envelopes look a little bit more hand labeled, which they are. But yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And they make it all the way to Kansas, and I always get a new edition, and they're never damaged. If they were damaged, I would obviously tell them, but they always come intact and they look great every time. Another question, timing. So what's the timeline for a new issue? How long does it take you from the time you are on step 1 until step 6? What's that time period usually, Meg?
Ideally, that's 2 months. That gives yourself plenty of time. So again, work backwards from your deadline. If your deadline's, I actually wrote up a sample one. If your deadline to have everything in your mailbox by April 30th, you would say April 9th through 15th would be edit week, working backwards. April 1st through 8th would be your design phase. March 31st, you want to have your sponsors solidified and everything to you. March 2nd, you want to delegate your tasks. March 1st, you're presenting to your rainmaker, and then February 28th is your brainstorm meeting. So that was backwards. So again, you would do your brainstorm meeting at the start of it, at day 1 of your 2-month period. Day 2 of your 2-month period, you would present it to whoever's making the big decisions and who you want to get approval from. You give yourself a month from there for content creation. This is what we do. You can do it completely different. We give you a month for creating the magazine. We use Adobe InDesign to create it from scratch. And for folks to create the articles, get the photos and everything like that. Have everything turned into the editor at the end of that month. And then April 1st, so that would be the start of the 2nd month, would be the design phase, throwing it all together. Edit week would be the 9th through 15th, and then it'd be in mailboxes by the 30th. That's a lot.
It's good.
You follow along with that?
Yeah.
Right.
It's good.
Folks are asking how many pages is your current magazine? Our last one we sent out is 24 pages. That includes the covers. Typically we do 20 pages, but we might stick with 24 now.
Yeah, the gift guide. I mean, I feel like we always end up saying if only we had one more page.
Yeah. But we did not start with 20 pages.
No. And when we added the articles for the sponsors, that added, 4 pages that we previously, if you,
Yeah.
it's just, you need every bit of that, I think, once you really get in there. Because what you don't want is for it to be so packed that, when the font is tiny and you really don't want to read any of it, but that's what we don't want to have happen.
Yeah.
What was there another question about that? How many?
No, that was it. And then what portions of the magazine kept in-house versus leveraged?
It's all in-house.
Yeah. So we do it all in-house. We might get our photographer to take a cover shot, but we have a Sony 6500 great camera that we try to utilize to save a little bit of dough, and the photos turn out great. But yeah, so we keep everything in-house. Again, there's a team that does the magazine. It's Mary Cheatham, myself, Landy, and Andy, and they all help with content creation. And yeah, we try to keep it
It's
all
really good.
all in
It's
the
good. And planning for the covers is so fun. I mean, if you're doing a team event or anything with your team anyway, it's a great chance just to say, let's just have, and we actually normally get our photographer who does our property photo shoots just to come and take it, because he doesn't charge us an arm and a leg, and it's just great to have it kind of professionally done. This I love this one. This was our summer one. We all went to this general store in this little town, Beaufort, and got ice cream. And then on the inside, one of our pages was a spread about how you can make at-home ice cream sandwiches using different fun flavor combinations and using ice cream that you pick up at different local ice cream shops. So, kind of it just kind of was a theme that went throughout, but that was a really fun one too.
Yep.
Yeah. I did that with my kids, and it was awesome. The ice cream sandwich thing, it was great.
It was the best combinations. I know. And Meg did all that. Meg did that flat lay. Meg did a beautiful job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was pre-COVID. Throwback.
I know.
Oh, good times.
Yeah.
Whenever we talk about this, inevitably the conversation around ROI comes up. So, what's the return on investment of all of this?
MC, take her away.
Do you like this? One? So, I mean, I think that, ROI it's just impossible to track, y'all. It just is. I mean, we normally get a bump right after the magazine is in mailboxes from people who call and say, I mean, truly, I took a $2.8 million listing 2 weeks ago where the people called and they said, we're not really sure how we got on your mailing list. We used someone else when we bought this property, but we just love getting y'all stuff. It's so cool seeing how involved you are in the community, and we'd like for y'all to sell it for us. I mean, bam, so they didn't specifically reference the magazine, but gosh, I mean, I know they get it. And so that's gotta be a huge factor. I just think you can't, it's sitting all around in businesses. I just think it's ROI is impossible to measure, and I'm sorry for all you numbers crazies, but I just think that, if it's done right, and if it's done in a spirit that is both authentic and that is truly trying to help prop up others and to try and sell your community and promote people who are doing great things in your area, then I think that it'll just, I promise you, it's worth it.
100% agree. And folks in the comments are asking about the software that we use. We use, again, Adobe InDesign, and I had a very vague knowledge of Adobe InDesign before I started working with Mary Cheatham. And I would suggest, if anyone wants to learn it or anything like that, A, go into it and just start using it. You'll learn it as you go. But B, lynda.com, LYNDA.com has great tutorials on how to use any Adobe product, but specifically InDesign. So if anyone's interested in learning, you'll learn fast, promise.
And you did a great job by answering that ROI question, Mary Cheatham, because usually when somebody asks that question, you just look at me. There's the thing that I always encourage people to consider is, first off, it's the goodwill, right? This team has a tremendous amount of goodwill, and they are absolutely, if you look at their market, they are the dominant team across all companies. They are not very good at tooting their own horn, so I have to do it for them. But this year they're on track to close about 315 transactions for 185 million. And so when you look at the market share that they have and then what their closest competitor is, it's not even close. And so it's the goodwill of the community, not just because of the magazine going out, but it's all the folks that they have the opportunity to communicate with and touch and help and enhance their businesses through their reach. So they kind of serve as a platform for local businesses. And I think the other side of that is the mind share that they ultimately have, because if you live in Morehead City, you know who the team is. And I believe that the magazine is just an extension of their service plan, that the customer experience that they provide in their marketplace, it all is woven together. And so I think that they do a really great job of it's integrated across the entire company, and that ROI, and I am a numbers nerd. I want to know exactly what the ROI is. And I think it's immeasurable. I mean, I remember when Hurricane Florence, the eye of it hit Morehead City and just sat on them and dumped for days. And how many mattresses did you guys come up with for the community? Like 80 some mattresses that you guys delivered to people?
Oh, yeah. That was cool. It was 85, I think was the number. You're right.
85 mattresses. So there's just a tremendous amount of goodwill and mind share, and then community and connectiveness that comes through the magazine. It's not just about how many sellers called off of the magazine. It's all the people that we get to touch. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So this is a good question. What's one thing you would do differently if you were just starting out now with the magazine?
Oh gosh. Oh, I have an answer. Do you want me to go first, Mary Gina?
Absolutely.
Mine's quick. Okay, so you actually mentioned this the other day, but one thing that I think I'm gonna try the next cycle of the magazine is think about who you want to partner with on the magazine first before you come up with your content. So if there are 3 businesses in your community who you really want to partner with, reach out and ask them first, and then come up with your theme around those 3. I think that was Mary Cheatham actually brought that up, and that was a really great idea. So I think I would do that differently. I will do that differently next time.
I think that's smart. And I think when you're thinking about who you're going to partner with from a not from a nonprofit standpoint, but from a small business standpoint, somebody who's you're going to want to ask to sponsor, I think about who has a really big social media reach.
Yeah.
Who would be your cheerleader? Who would get out there and be so fired up that they're in the magazine and want to help get the word out there? Oh my God, I just got my magazine in the mailbox. Who's going to talk about it? Who's going to tell people? And those are the people you want to think about first.
Mhm.
I think that's just strategy. That's just smart.
Yeah, I agree.
So Meg, I've looked through some of these other questions, and I think you've pretty much answered them all. Like how do you get the content? Who writes your articles?
And if anyone has, I know Mary Cheatham and Jordan, I know you guys have to have a hard stop at 4:30, but I'm happy to hang around if anyone has any extra questions. Happy to answer them as best as I can.
So yeah, they can just pop that in the chat box.
Right.
And Mary Cheatham, any parting thoughts?
No, I don't think so. Except for just, man, I mean, I hope that somebody, I mean, I'm thank you guys for joining us. And I hope that you guys maybe learn from our mistakes and from the things that we figured out. It's funny kind of going back through it. I forgot about the things that we were like, well, that didn't work.
Yikes.
But I will say that it's very, very fulfilling. I will say this endeavor. And that is so easy for me to say because Meg does all the work.
I agree with you. I agree.
But it just feels good. It feels like a win-win. It just feels like it serves the community while it serves us, and I love that. So it's a great thing, I think, to take on.
Yeah, I agree. Retweet.
Jordan, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jordan, thank you.
for doing this for us. Thank you. Thanks, Meg.
Hi guys. Again, I'll stick around if anyone has questions. You can raise your hand, or I can bring you in as a panelist. Bye, MC.
Thanks.
I'll just be here by myself. Bridget, our first issue, oh bless. I think it was mailed in an envelope. Again, this was our first issue, and it looks like it's folded in half. This was pre when I was working there. And it was folded in half like this. So I assume they stuck it in an envelope and mailed it that way. I think that's something that Mary Cheatham's always been big on, is how things get delivered to the mailbox, making sure that it comes in a luxury looking package or something like that. But we've found a lot of success in picking a color of an envelope, and we can get smaller envelopes in the same color. And people know that it's something from us when this blue envelope comes into their mailbox. So that's been a good thing. What other things do you think you had to tweak that you learned early on? Ooh, I think it was a mindset thing, Bailey. I came on about 2.5 years ago, and we called it a newsletter then, and I'll show you. It looked a little bit different. This is Mary Cheatham about 3 years ago. This is when we switched over to the to this format with the glossy paper. But I think switching the mindset from you're making a newsletter to you're making a magazine has kind of changed the game for us in terms of design choices and in terms of distribution and spotlighting other people in it. So yeah, I think we had to kind of tweak how we thought about it early on or recently in order to match the growth that that it's had. How was the price affected when you only ordered, say, 500? Ooh, great point. So there are decent price breaks with print. I'm certainly not a expert on print costs and stuff like that, but for, let's say, I mean, it might have been a couple cents different, but the more you order, the cheaper each individual piece is. But if it was 500, I mean, the price is of course going to be way lower, but your price per mailed piece might be a little bit higher. And I think in the beginning, Bailey, if I'm correct, they did a lot, MCKRE did a lot more hands-on work. So they might have printed the magazine or printed the newsletter and hand stuffed them themselves. I would really suggest doing that to save money. I mean, the handling costs, because people can actually take machines and get them in there. The handling costs are about $500 for our printer, which in the scheme of things with how many we're printing, I don't think is a huge deal. But if you're just starting out and you're doing maybe 250 to 500 editions or copies, maybe you hand stamp and hand label them to save a little bit. And then as you grow, you kind of go from there and outsource that. And I think that's what they did at the beginning. Where should I look to find talents for design in your organization? Ooh, good question, Sarah. I think someone local might be big. We live in a really small town, and I'm very lucky that I ran into Mary Cheatham King Real Estate, but I think definitely posting the job, I mean, post it through your personal, not your personal, but your team's Facebook page. That's how I found our job listing. And a lot of local folks were targeted by it. So I would definitely start on social media and then branch out from there. But I think Jordan's thing about hiring someone local, I really never thought about it before, but that makes things so much easier. And the fact that you just have to find someone with both the design eye and someone who's local. But I will say I didn't go to school for design. It's just something that I really like and something that I've learned through doing it. So you can always teach it. You just have to find someone who's creative enough to want to learn it. What's your approach on designing a magazine on your end and keeping things cohesive throughout? Good question, Karen. So we design it from scratch. So I start with 24 blank pages in InDesign, which is how I prefer it. But I go to my swipe file and I check for any screenshots that I've taken, any color schemes or any ideas that I've stowed away over the past couple of months in between magazines. And that's how I start. But keeping things cohesive throughout, the planning beforehand and sticking to your plan, I think is the biggest, it's the biggest benefit, I think, and the easiest way to stay cohesive throughout. So planning it and sticking to your plan and making sure it makes sense in the beginning stages so it makes sense when you're done with it. Also, do others send you content and do you format it, or do you ooh, good question. Okay, so again, Landy, she's our client care coordinator, and she also happens to be a fabulous writer. So she is nice enough to help me with content creation. So she writes the longer articles and I write the blurbs. But yeah, so she sends me content and I have folks on our team. I have another fabulous girl who works with me in the marketing department, and she helps me come up with items for the gift guide or events. So information collection to help cut down on my time kind of searching the internet for different local things. So I have folks that do submit content to me. And again, we have a specific deadline that the content is due. That sounds so aggressive, but we put it on the calendar and we just make sure that all the content is into me so I can format it and put it in the magazine on time. How long would you suggest spending on the very first issue? It depends on how long it is, Bailey. I think, I mean, a 20 to 24 pager, we usually spend 2 months. Again, it's not all day, every day, but from planning to when we send it into print, month and a half to 2 months. Oh, got it. Oh my gosh, no, it's not silly to do it as an individual agent. When Mary Cheatham started, she was the only agent on the team. And she had 3 admin. She actually hired a marketing specialist really early on, but I think as an individual agent that could really set you apart, and it's worth your while 100%. This is our biggest piece of marketing that we put out, and it's something that we see. I know we talked about ROI and how it's not actually a number for us, but it definitely is our biggest. We see the biggest return from the magazine and the biggest brand awareness increase from it. What's the population in your town? Oh my gosh, stop. It's okay. The population is 70,000. I could be completely wrong. Lana, just pop in and let me know if I'm incorrect, but I'm pretty sure it was 70,000. So it's pretty small. It's a lot of second homes, and we live at the beach. So we can throw a rock to the ocean right there, which is pretty great, but it's a different market than say Raleigh or something like that. Again, we're in North Carolina, so we have Raleigh and Charlotte and places around us there. So it's a little bit of a smaller town. Do you think it'd be as effective in a town of 400,000? I think it just depends on the size of your database. So Bailey asked, do you think it will be as effective in a town of 400,000 versus a smaller town like ours? Yes, but we only send it to our database. I don't even know if we said that in the Zoom, but 100% we send it. Oh, well, we did with the quantity, but I think it just depends on the size of your database. It grows every time. If you have a bigger community, then that's almost an advantage for you guys, because that means you could grow a little bit more exponentially if you're including neighborhood farms and stuff like that in it. But I definitely think if you're dropping it off at the right businesses, and thank you, Lana. If you're dropping it off at the right businesses who match your demographic, and if you're sending it to people who match your clientele, then it's 100% worth it, no matter how big your population is. Wow, 70,734 is our 2020 population. Shocked I knew that. Thank you, Lana. Oh, Jordan's role. Great question, Sarah. She asked, what is Jordan's role? So Jordan is our MAPS coach. We did not introduce him, which you just reminded me of, but he's our MAPS coach. He's been Mary Cheatham's MAPS coach since the beginning. She started Mary Cheatham King Real Estate in 2016 with just her and Susan, who is still on our team, and she's grown it. We're now 18 women on the team. So Jordan is our only male employee, and he lives in Kansas, but we live in North Carolina, and he is our business coach. So he's Mary Cheatham's, and then we each get individual calls with him on a rotation. So he's awesome. And again, he kind of pushed our team to start the magazine or something similar. So Jordan is a big reason for our success. Yes, we are 18 women and Jordan. Do you hope to have oh my gosh. Okay, Bailey just asked, do you hope to have a Netflix show someday? That is funny, but from the looks of Selling Sunset, which we are obsessed with, I don't know if that's our cup of tea. That would be really funny. You're so right. Yes, Bailey says with 18 women, it seems like it'd be entertaining. It's certainly entertaining, that's for sure. Sarah, my email, I'll put it down here. And y'all, if anyone has any additional questions over the next couple of days, I just shot my email in the chat. Please let me know. I'm happy to answer anything. I may not have all the answers, but I can tell you what, again, what we've done wrong and how we would do it differently. How many admins do we have for a team of 18? So we're 4 agents and 14 admin. So yeah, so we have 2 on the marketing department. And then we have 2 listing agents, 2 buyers agents, and then they have their respective coordinators, and we have a project manager and a stager. So yeah, I'm gonna make sure to get everyone's mailing address from this chat, and I will be sure and mail you guys. It might be an older version of the magazine, but I will make sure you guys get on our mailing list for this upcoming one as well. All right, y'all, I'm gonna hop off. Are there any additional questions? And again, feel free to email me. It's Megan at Mary Cheatham King Real Estate. And I'm happy to answer. Thank you guys for spending time. Of course. All right, guys, thank you. And oh, I'm recording this, so I will send all of you guys the recording somehow. And you guys can go back and see any answers that you might have missed or anything like that. So thank you guys so much. Bye.